robin, go tweet, 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 rockin' robin. Tweet, tweet, rockin' robin. Tweet, tweet, blow rockin' robin, 'cause we really gonna rock tonight.
Blast off! Welcome to Life is Good. I'm Heather McHugh, your ever-loving hostess, and this show, it's not going to be what we usually talk about. I don't usually avoid politics. I don't. It just I usually eat about, but it's USA today. It's what we're experiencing now on all sides. I'd like to see everyone come together and be kumbaya, best buddies, but we can't agree with a lot of things that are being taken advantage of, our Constitution being diluted, and other things that are happening on our watch. So let me introduce you to a JetBlue buddy, Christian Elberfeld, who no longer works for JetBlue, but he's into caregiving on another level entirely. Hello, Christian.
Yeah. Hello, Heather. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
It's great to see you, too. Well, it's been a while because you decided you were going to leave the great Northeast and move to the great LA.
Right. And that was, I grew up in California, mostly grew up in Southern California, then the Bay Area, and then I lived in Vermont for 25 years.
And this is an impossible state to leave once you've got Vermont in your blood.
Yeah, but last week when it was unusually warm, even for the beach city, so it was 75 degrees and it was the coldest winter in Vermont in over a decade. LA has 12 lanes of being stuck freeway traffic, which sucks, but it doesn't have freezing cold and icy roads.
No, it's got roads that never go anywhere because you're always stuck in traffic. I think it's 3 days. Yeah. And now you're just off Sepulveda, which is where our crew hotel used to be. Yeah. A little bit of bio. Let's hear it first of all. What you did and why you and I know each other.
Okay, going through Facebook. Going in reverse history, I've worked airline customer service for essentially all my working life. Most recently at JetBlue, rather the contractor for JetBlue, GAT Aviation. And in the past, both for the original Piedmont Airlines, which then became US Airways, and I left that company before the American merger, then worked for United at Burlington. And unfortunately, both in case of US Airways and then later United, I loved the work, airline customer service, not the most glamorous or well-paying job, but I loved every minute of it, even those crazy delay days. Unfortunately, I have a bit of a disability. Was diagnosed with MS in 2002, and both companies granted me an ADA accommodation, and then later decided, guess what? We don't want to do that ADA accommodation anymore.
Now that's Americans Disabilities
American with Disabilities Act, which says that employers have to provide reasonable accommodations for employees with disabilities. However, who decides what is and what is not reasonable? And first, US Airways, and there's a long backstory to it, which is not super interesting. They revoked my AD accommodation in 2011, and I went on Social Security disability, which was great for like the first 3 weeks. Don't have to go to work, but after 3 weeks, it gets boring.
Oh God, yeah.
And also SSDI is not a king's ransom, and so I needed more money, and I was tired of not working. So in 2016, I went to work for United at the Burlington Airport, or rather their subsidiary United Ground Express, and really enjoyed that. And then unfortunately, they decided to rescind my ADA accommodation also. That wound up going to litigation, which settled last year, and I signed an NDA, so I can't talk about it.
Oh, come on, I won't tell anybody, and I don't know how to spell it.
Yeah. But
and
then,
the six people who watch my show. Shh. No, I understand.
And then I got a job with the GAT Aviation, which is the company that handles JetBlue at the Burlington Airport. Unfortunately, I was not a customer service agent. That was due to, I was a passenger assistance agent. Basically, which basically meant pushing wheelchairs.
Oh, there's irony.
Yes, and originally I thought it'd be a customer service, being behind the counter at the gate, checking people in, and but due to a series of miscommunications, that one not happening. And but I very much being back at the airport around people, great people at all the airlines at the airport, being around the airplanes, and pushing wheelchairs is a great way to meet people.
It is.
It was a lot of fun. And I have some mobility impairments myself. When I go through a big airport, I ask for wheelchair assistance because walking a long distance can be difficult. But I very much enjoyed the job. And unfortunately, JetBlue stopped flying Burlington 2 years ago, which is sad because Burlington is one of the first cities that JetBlue started flying back in, what was it, 2000-ish?
Around 2000?
1999, 2000-ish. JetBlue was one of the very first cities that they served.
I know,
no more.
It changed my life because I'd been offered a partnership at a clinic in the city in New York for years because my friend had a clinic on West 56 right across from Carnegie Hall in City Center Theater. And so we were on a massage team that traveled the country to work on elite athletes. And so she kept on saying, Heather, come on. Be my partner so I can leave my office and open another clinic in Nantucket. And for years she asked me this, and I said, no, I've got kids, no, I've got this, no, I've got that. And then suddenly 9/11, and suddenly JetBlue was available to me. And so I called her up and I said, is that offer still open? And she said, yep. So I started flying JetBlue every week. Every Saturday I'd fly out. Every Monday night or Tuesday morning I would fly back because I'd only work in that clinic for a couple and then come back to my clinic here. Yeah. And
your arms probably got very tired.
Not with JetBlue, I'll tell you. It was so comfortable. And so I fell in love with the airline, JetBlue itself, because of the fun I had on the plane. And I watched the flight attendants treating us so well. It was like the old days of flying. It was only with a great laugh track. So that's why. And so when JetBlue pulled out of Burlington, I was heartbroken. Because now I fly free for the rest of my life on JetBlue, but it's not here.
No.
So did you get grandfathered into flying for free? Or
when I left American for various reasons that are too boring to go into, or left U.S. Airways before the American merger, for various reasons, I chose not to sue them to get my job back. I chose to take early retirement. I got no medical, no pension, but I do get flight benefits on American, and then Z benefits on other carriers. But I miss the job so much.
Yes.
And I'm a bit of airline person. My mom was a stewardess, which was called back then in the late 50s, early 60s for Scandinavian Airlines.
Oh, I say yes.
She was Danish. She was Danish. My dad was American, and I grew up in her stories about traveling and flying. And when she was a young woman, she lived and worked in Paris for a year, and she fell in love with Paris, and she got into the airline job at SAS because it wouldn't enable her to go to Paris. Then she found out about how seniority system works at the airline. She found that she didn't have the seniority to work the Paris trips. She mostly flew Middle Eastern trips. And she told me stories about what places like Beirut and Tehran were like back in the old days before a lot of bad things happened. Beirut was called the Paris of the Middle East.
Beirut, magnificent. Yeah. Magnificent. And Tehran.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Your mother was very fortunate.
Yeah, and we lived in Denmark until I was 10 years old. We lived in Denmark, and so I spent my formative years there, and then we moved to California when I was 10 years old.
And I must say, are you wearing a Greenland T-shirt today?
It is.
I'm not accepting any calls, but you can have that one for sure.
Stand
up a little bit.
Yeah, let's see here. It's hang on here.
I'll show you. It's backwards in here, so I can't read it. But
yeah, it features a polar bear, or native to Greenland, and it says new to Nuuk. It's a bit of a pun in Danish. N-U-U-K is the capital of Greenland.
Capital. Yep.
N-U-K with the one U means enough in Danish. So that means now it's Nuuk, the capital of Greenland, or now it's enough, meaning it's enough about our leader wanting to take a territory of a alliance country. So
there's been a great spin that has just been unspun about
yes,
our feckless leader. That's the only F word I'm going to use on this show. Although if I stub my toe and think of him at the same time, the air goes blue.
Yeah, but I know how many of you
anyway,
are viewers.
This today, I saw a report from a very reliable source a few days ago, and this is now February 24th. A few days ago. Yep, February 24th, and I don't know when this show will be aired, but if you're watching this show, it is now February 24th. And Trump said he was sending a medical boat, which should have been called ship, to Greenland because they can't take care of their people. Well, the actual fact is, one of our nuclear subs, they were probably doing these missions up to the Arctic and back, had a medical emergency aboard and pulled in within 7 miles of Greenland, and a helicopter came and airlifted the injured or sick sailor off that Nuuk sub and took him to Nuuk for medical treatment, and
where he's going to get socialized medicine.
That's right. But the lies that come out of he who shall not be named, who is our feckless leader, he actually said we're sending a medical boat to Greenland,
which would be difficult because both the U.S. Navy's hospital ships are in dry dock in Alabama,
and they are.
Yes,
but he doesn't even. And if he does know that, he thinks that we're stupid enough to believe him. And the problem is, the people who believe him are not stupid. The people who believe him are only listening to his rhetoric.
Yeah.
So it becomes their gospel. And it's not because they're stupid. It's because that's what an appetite grows on what it feeds. Yeah. And if a person is accustomed to being patriotic rather than nationalistic, you're going to love your leader. So I don't fault the people who are loving him. I just wish they'd open their minds and look around a little bit.
Back at home, Vermont, I don't have cable or satellite TV. I just have streaming services. I can see pretty much everything I need through streaming. And up until recently, the only time I ever saw anything from Fox News or ON was when Daily Show was making fun of them. For the last several months, I've been staying at the home of a friend here in Manhattan Beach, helping him through some medical problems. And he has cable television. And sometimes take a look at OAN. And it is absolutely abysmally beyond frightening. It just complete propaganda, White House and Ice Barbie propaganda. And I listen to other news sources, BBC, Deutsche Welle, other news sources than just American news media. Also watch Danish TV and listen to Danish radio because I speak the language.
Well, they must be saying a lot of good things.
It's important to get multiple viewpoints, but millions of dear leaders, cult followers, they vote for Fox News, or for those people for whom Fox News is too liberal, there is OAN, and that's what they watch, and that's what they're exposed to. If all I did was watch OAN, I'd be thinking some pretty wild-ass things too.
Of course. And like I say, an appetite grows on what's it's barbaric that we have stations that lie. I mean, every station has an element of
and Sinclair Broadcasting is one of the biggest.
It used to be an element of tact, where we won't tell the full story because it's rude to divulge these facts about somebody, so we'll only cover that part of the story. That was a guilt by, what do they call it when you leave deletion?
Yes.
So throughout history, we journalists, people who have TV shows or write for newspapers, we try to be polite, so we've always hidden a lot of the dirt. But now the dirt is being cast out rather than anything else, because people are accustomed to being titillated.
Right.
And I've got to say, if you're watching a lot of what's being said now, if you were not involved, if this was not the country in which I live, I would be thinking this is the best humor I've ever seen. I mean, this is so farcical.
Yeah.
Back to Manhattan Beach information.
Manhattan Beach is the suburb here in LA in which I live at my friend's house. And it's very nice city. It's one of the swankiest parts of LA County. It's a very nice area. Has a very nice beach, but my favorite actual beach is Dockweiler Beach, just a few miles north of here, which is just west of LAX. And you can see the planes climbing out of LAX. It's a beautiful beach, and Manhattan Beach can get very, very crowded.
Oh yeah.
Dockweiler Beach, unless it's a holiday, is almost deserted. It has easy parking. It's a state park. It's beautiful. You can watch the planes take off, walk along the surf, and it's absolutely wonderful. But the city of Manhattan Beach is very, very nice.
I used to love walking through the city of Manhattan because of the hill.
Yeah.
And I would go on the top road way down, and then I go down the hill, and then I come back on the beach. And sometimes I take side trips because the houses are all so intricate. Every house is different. I can't call it suburbia because every house is an art form.
Yeah, the home of the friend where I'm staying, he was an aerospace, spent his career as an engineer for Hughes Aircraft, and he has built his own violin. He plays the violin. He used to play in the local symphony orchestra. Loves classical music. Very, very brilliant guy. Unfortunately, he does have Alzheimer's, and that is affecting him the way that horrible disease does. But he's also very, very talented. He loves woodworking. He rebuilt most of the kitchen. He's lived in this house for over 50 years. And staying in his house is very important to him. And that's even though he really is not capable of living by himself. I known the family for over 50 years. His son is one of my best friends from college. They knew my situation in Vermont, not having a job and facing the cold winter in Vermont a year ago. Asked me if I wanted to come out here and help the dad out, and it's working out very well for both of us. I'm happy to be out here. I do miss Vermont, maybe not so much in winter. Before the call, we were talking about the natural beauty of Vermont, its lack of billboards here in LA. There are billboards everywhere, especially along the freeways, and every other billboard is for a personal injury attorney. And
yeah, it's a graft. It's a total graft.
And LA, of course, has fantastic museums, attractions. However, to get anywhere, you have to spend 2 hours on a 12-lane freeway, and that gets old pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Where I live
Go ahead.
Where I live in Franklin County, a traffic jam is 5 cars stuck by a tractor hauling manure spreader.
Yeah, I know. And I used to work on a dairy farm, so I'm all full of respect for that. Now, you're 20 some odd years in Vermont, so you must have picked up on the fact that we are very liberal for the most part. There's a
yes.
There's a conservative area. I'm conservative financially.
Yeah.
I'm economically conservative, but liberally, we're too busy trying to survive to judge anybody.
Well, Vermont is liberal, Burlington is liberal, but as in Vermont, as everywhere else, there's the urban-rural divide. And Franklin County is a bit politically different than Burlington or Winooski. Just as here in California, many people make fun of the difference between LA and the Bay Area. But the real difference in California is between coastal California and inland California. Places like Bakersfield, Fresno, well, Fresno, not so much, but the smaller cities in that area and rural areas are decidedly more conservative than the coastal California. One little interesting bit of trivia, northeastern California, Susanville, Lassen area is one of the most conservative areas of California, deep, deep red. A little over 100 years ago, Eugene Debs, the socialist, was running for president, from jail, he was in prison. He was running for president, and the areas in California where he did the best was extreme northeastern California.
And it's so funny that we had somebody running for president from jail, and we should put our president in jail.
Precisely,
I mean,
but it's if a generation is 25 years and 4 generations, northeastern California went from being the most socialist-friendly area of California to the deepest red part of California.
yeah, well, transition is always present. I mean, evolution
Indeed.
is always present. And I've got nothing against evolution. It has its way of being pendulum swinging too far to the left or too far to the right.
Yeah.
I wish it would come to the center. With your Danish heritage, or upbringing it for at least 10 years, and your mom, the Greenland thing must be horrible for you to witness.
It is. I've never been to Greenland.
But I've been to Oklahoma.
Yeah, my mom flew there on her days with Scandinavian Airlines on a DC-6 or DC-7 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Greenland has a complicated history with Denmark, colonialism, and
Can you elaborate, please? Because I have to educate myself, too.
one of the less fortunate parts of Danish rule of Greenland was, I believe, 1950s and 60s. Greenlandic Inuit native women were involuntarily sterilized.
Oh, Jesus.
Well, that's how white people have treated indigenous people.
Everywhere.
Yeah, there was never the mass genocide as there was here in this country, but there was cultural imperialism. For a while, Greenland, was an politically integral part of Denmark. It was considered a county no different from any other county in Denmark. And starting in the 1970s, the transition was made towards home rule, especially in 1979. Most of the place names in Greenland, which when I grew up had Danish place names, they've been replaced by Inuit names. And many Greenlanders are in favor of full independence. However, even the most ardent separatists realize that they can't afford it. It's a country within the Danish kingdom of fewer than 60,000 people. They can't afford independence. If you're a native Inuit in Greenland on the most remote village on the most remote fjord, and you get sick or injured, the Greenlandic government will helicopter you to Nuuk, and if your case is too complicated, we'll fly you to Copenhagen.
Yeah.
And now, the dear leader's push to acquire the sovereign territory of another country has really tapped the brakes on the Greenlandic independence movement. They realized they'd rather have Copenhagen than Washington.
Well, I think so.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And they like their free healthcare, which they wouldn't have if the U.S. took over.
It's true. And I'm from Canada. Did you know I was from Canada?
I did.
And we have nationalized health care up there, and everyone says, oh, yeah, you have to wait 2 years for a knee, but at least you get your knee. My son needs a knee. He can't get one here. And there's so much to be said about colonization. I used to teach Holocaust. It wasn't Holocaust studies. It was Holocaust awareness to different schools. And it was my own program because I was exposed to a family that said, oh, it never happened. And these were teachers, and their children went to school with my children. And they said, it never happened. And I thought, well, I beg to differ.
And where were these people from? They were from Canadians?
They were very well educated, a couple of master's degrees each, but they denied the Holocaust. And this was in Franklin County. And
that's disturbing.
It was. So I went to the principal of the school and I said, if I can design a course that's 1 hour, that goes through the Holocaust, it's, the lead up without too much, and then the Holocaust itself and the resulting there, and what anti-Semitism actually did, anti-gypsy, anti-gay, every other, physically or emotionally damaged person was, killed. Any challenged person was definitely set up to the chambers. So the principal, Mr. Burbank, said, well, Heather, if you can make that happen, we'll put the school together and you'll have an assembly and you can teach it. I said, good. Will you volunteer me for other schools? Can you endorse me for other schools if this goes well?
Wonderful.
Yeah. And I did that for quite a while in the early 90s. And at the end of every time I had a class or an auditorium, do you think that would ever happen here? No, no. And I said, aha, let me tell you about Genghis Khan. Let me tell you about the Crusades. Let me tell you about Native Americans being annihilated here, First Nations in Canada being annihilated there. Every time you have a colonization of any place, it's not reciprocity, it's takeover.
No.
And it's ego and greed, land grabbing, money grabbing, prejudice that puts one person
Indeed.
who thinks he's superior to another, or he needs what
Yeah.
you have, so he has to kill you. And if you're a threat to anyone's ego, you might get killed by someone like that. And
And of
so,
course, with the Holocaust, the Germans kept records of everything they did.
yeah, talk about,
How many
they were proud of it, you see.
and how many rail cars they needed to deport people to the death camps. So
Yeah.
they,
And
they kept records of it. And
thank God for,
famously, Eisenhower famously, I'm botching the quote, but he said, we need to record this because a few years from now, some idiot's going to deny this happened. So let's record everything that we see.
yeah,
And
I
why
think there are
can't
more
we,
people. Go ahead.
and why can't we have Republicans like Ike Eisenhower?
Well, they do exist. Genetically speaking, there has to be someone left over from that era.
I still remember Jim Jeffords.
Oh, of course. Thank you, Jim.
I was working for U.S. Airways at the Burlington Airport, and I got a call from the VIP coordinator at DCA. And a couple years ago, I went up working at DCA for a while, but that's another story. The VIP coordinator said, "Hey, calling from the VIP desk at DCA. I'm used to seeing a lot of reporters. Jim Jeffords is going to be on the flight up to BTV. I've never seen so many reporters here because it
Yeah,
was
the Jim
widely
Jeffords crossed
rumored
the floor. Pardon
it
me.
was widely rumored that he was going to switch parties.
He
And
did.
I'm at the flight. The room was packed with reporters, and I knew he would say no, but I thought I would have to offer it to him, Senator. Just to let you know, the airport's packed. I can get you out the back way of the airport. I knew he would say no, but I felt I had to offer it. And of course, no. So he went out to the throng of reporters and to a standing ovation. And that was in September of 2001. And up until what happened later in 2001, his switching parties was the #1 news story that year. And he was one of those, I'm dating myself here, the Northeastern modern Republicans, Lowell Weicker, that goes way back. That's how old I am. And Jim Jeffords said, I didn't leave the Republican Party. The Republican Party left me.
That's exactly what he said.
And those Republicans, I know some people say Susan Collins, but
You mean from Maine?
yeah, I mean, she
What
makes
about
a
what's
big,
happening with her? They've got this great guy running against her. Former
she makes,
Marine.
she makes a big show of being a moderate Republican, and then she almost always votes with whatever Republican is in the White House. And she's being challenged this year. And
Yes, she sure has.
and
One of the fellows who's running. Go ahead.
and she is the only, to my knowledge, she's the only Republican in either House of Congress from New England.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we've got Becca Ballant, who is in the legislature. She's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Let's get back to Manhattan Beach and the
Oh
protests that
yes,
you have there,
oh yeah,
because you've been participating in them, have you not?
I have.
Or do you just
It takes place, for those of you who know Manhattan Beach, it takes place on Sepulveda Boulevard. It was a big north-south
big boulevard?
thoroughfare, just south of the intersection with Rosecrans Boulevard, which is another big street. Um, had noticed it going on, and usually on Sundays I'd often drive up to visit a friend of mine up in the San Fernando Valley. I would see the protest, kind of honk my horn in support, and I thought I really got to go there one of these days. And then I'd forget about it until I got to go next week. And then finally, a couple months ago, a friend of the guy I'm helping out, a friend of his, said, "No, you should really come to the rally." So I went. It's not very far from here, and it's been an absolute blast. There's usually anywhere from 100 to maybe 75 people to 100. A couple times last month, after ICE did their shenanigans in
In
Minnesota,
yeah.
the turnout was much bigger than usual. And I've always have interesting conversations with people that I meet. And Manhattan Beach is a fairly progressive part of LA County. The number of honks and people who honk their horns in support vastly outnumber the one-fingered salutes. Was there last Sunday? I only saw one-fingered salute. The driver was, of course, driver of a big-ass giant pickup truck. Big surprise. But it's a lot of fun, and meet interesting people, hold signs, and
you're peaceful.
we are.
And I think that's good, because a lot of what I've heard, if you're not peaceful, that's exactly what the other person wants.
Precisely. Yeah.
Because if you sink to that level, it will be sinking to a level that from which we will not come back. The violence settles nothing and just causes more violence, countermeasures. So I'm so glad out in California and in Vermont and throughout the country, the protests have maintained their sense of dignity.
Yeah, and so far, no, ICE has not shown up. And when I got out here to Southern California, not having lived here for many, many years, was right around the time that some protests were going on, and the leaders sent troops to patrol the streets of downtown LA.
I remember that.
And
Yeah.
my friends back around, "Are you okay?" Well, when you're seeing news, that's a few blocks from downtown LA. I'm Manhattan Beach. None of that's going on anywhere near Manhattan Beach. But it was happening not that far away, really, in downtown LA, and with the federal troops. And that's something you see in movies about banana republics or Eastern Europe or something like that.
Well, it also happened where I'm from. I'm from
I know.
Montreal, and in 1970 we had the War Measures Act declared when James Cross, the consul from London, England, was abducted. I knew him because I used to go to the consulate a lot with his chauffeur, who was my flying buddy, little planes. So Mr. Cross would always be very, very nice to me. And my mom had passed away September 26th, and in 1970, and our member of parliament sent his condolences. Was very, very good to my dad at that point. And he was abducted, tortured, and killed.
Remember that? Yeah.
And
I was too young at the time, but I've read about it since then.
yeah, and we had machine guns on every corner, soldiers. And my mom had just died, and we called this the October crisis because she died on the 26th. She was buried on the 28th, and on October 1st, all heck broke loose in Quebec. And it was
You must have been young. You must have been pretty young at the time.
I was 17. And so that took away a lot of what was on my mind at that time, because everything was so frightening and so scary and so exciting. And there was no reality in my head, even though, our member of parliament, who had just spoken with my dad a couple of days before, was murdered. And Mr. Cross was gone. But they traded Mr. Cross's life for free passage to Cuba. These perpetrators, Mr. Rose and his others of his ilk, who were given free passage, carte blanche to Cuba in exchange for Mr. Cross's life. And I've seen
That
that.
part, that part I did not know about.
Yeah, and Mr. Rose came back before he died. He came back about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago to Quebec with complete amnesty from any
Wow.
of the murders or kidnappings or extortion. And there were bombs going off in mailboxes. There were bombs going off everywhere. We had helicopters above everything. You know, we had a cottage on Lake Memphremagog,
Yeah.
and it was on a private estate. So it was a private road with cottages and woods. And so you couldn't see the next cottage. We were spread out. I mean, it was a private place to be. And that road was completely gone over hand and foot. Every cottage opened up, every cottage looked at. There were only about 10 of us on that whole mile, I guess, but they had carte blanche to come in and check to see if that might be where they were hiding Mr. Cross. And we all just said, hands off, go for it. You know, just that was, my father and everybody, go for it, go and check, make sure. And that kind of chaos in an early person's life, I mean, that left an impression upon me about when things are so out of control that you have no control in your life. And your friend's house is being ransacked because they heard that a Mr. Parizeau lived there, And he did, but he was a member of our town. He was not one of the perpetrators. But people were turning each other in for suspicion and things like that, just like it was in Nazi Germany. But we were doing it for the right reasons, we thought, because we thought,
Yeah.
well, if that person's got something to do with the kidnapping of Mr. Cross, we've got to turn him in. But we didn't, because we didn't know anybody like that. But we were all wanting to find the perpetrator. And the violence was only on one side. And the rest of us just stood back. And they eventually, there was not a civil war. There was not a war. We were in a war zone without a war. So, I mean, that could easily happen. Go ahead.
That time was turbulent in
Yeah.
many places.
Yeah, and when I
Things
see
going on.
when I see machine guns and when I see ICE people marching along, I've
course,
had a bit of experience with that. And
a lot of political protests in France at that time, late 60s. Civil rights movements going on here, assassinations going on here. And meanwhile, I was a little kid in little peaceful Denmark. My dad was.
and my dad worked for Swedish,
And
so
and I was aware,
yeah.
even though I was just a little kid, aware of the civil rights movement going on in the U.S. And people in Denmark would say, "Wow, it's terrible how those Americans treat the poor Black people. We in Denmark would never be like that."
So who are the Danes beating up? Who are the Danes beating up on? The Inuit of Greenland.
Well, they were at the time, but back then, Denmark had essentially no immigration, certainly not non-Western immigration. Then in the late 1960s, the economy was going great. Denmark, like many Western European countries, brought in guest workers to do the grunt jobs that blue-eyed and blonde people didn't feel like doing. So they brought people in from places like Tunisia, Pakistan, and Turkey. And then that was going great. They would haul the garbage and fix the potholes. And then these guest workers started dating the blonde, blue-eyed people. And then
Well, of course.
we do a great job driving the trash trucks and fixing the potholes, but then some friction started developing. And in the 1970s, as the current economy went bad, Denmark did not send the guest workers home. They welcomed them to stay, and they became increasingly integrated into Danish society. And then in more recent years, Denmark has brought in a lot of non-Western immigrants, not as many as Germany with the Syrian refugees, but a lot. And Scandinavian countries traditionally have been very supportive of less privileged parts of the world.
So was Canada, so was the United States.
Yeah. And, but the biggest issue in Danish society is the integration of non-Western. Back in the late 1960s, I was a little kid, but I still read the newspaper. Denmark was one of the first countries to legalize pornography, and the adult bookstores tended to be in the more economically disadvantaged neighborhoods of Copenhagen, which are now some of the shishi neighborhoods, of course. But back then, 50
Copenhagen's
years ago, they
gorgeous.
were not.
Yeah.
And I was maybe 9 years old, and there's a picture in the paper of these women dressed in non-Western attire walking past a adult bookstore.
Yeah.
Even though I was a little kid, I thought that must be weird for them. And to this day, when you have people coming from very religious, very conservative societies coming to one of the most secular, liberal societies on the planet, there is going to be a clash of cultures and misunderstandings.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years ago, it's about 10 years ago, the Netherlands has taken in a lot of people. Of course, the Netherlands had a colonial empire in Indonesia and South America,
Yes.
and brought a lot of immigrants from Suriname and Indonesia. Now, every Dutch city of any significance at all will have at least one Indonesian restaurant.
And one red light district.
Oh, yes.
I mean, they're all legal in the Netherlands.
Are you familiar with Hirsi Ali?
Yeah.
Wonderful woman. I've read her book. And about 10 years ago, the Dutch immigration authorities put out a little video. So, do you want to come live in the Netherlands? Well, here are some pictures. Here are some women sunbathing topless on the beach. Here are some men holding hands and kissing the streets of Amsterdam. Saying, you want to come here? Well,
accept what we have.
And that's what Hirsi Ali said. She was fortunate enough to get out of Somalia. I came here to get away from the genital mutilations, the forced marriages, honor killings. I came here to be Dutch. I can still celebrate my Somali heritage. I came here to get away from that. And if you want to genitally mutilate your daughter,
we're talking about female circumcision, and I've written a story about that. So continue with her.
Well, I call it genital mutilation, not circumcision. Yeah. Actually, when I was working for United at the Burlington Airport, a number of my coworkers were from the Somali community in Vermont. Somalia is a place with a lot of challenges.
Yes.
But Hirsi Ali said, I came here to get away from that.
Good for her.
Unfortunately, she became Dutch citizen, became a member of the Dutch Parliament. She had so many threats against her that she now lives in the U.S.
Well, we're lucky to have her.
We are.
I hope she brought.
Unfortunately, she works for the Heritage Foundation, but we can't all be perfect. But I read her book about 10 years ago. It's a great book, and I'm a great admirer of her. But when you have people from a very traditional, very, very strict religious part of the world coming to a secular, progressive country, there are going to be misunderstandings and friction.
Getting back to what we were talking about, genital mutilation, and I only threw in female circumcision because that's what some people know what it is. It really is just genital mutilation. Yeah. And I did not know it was illegal here. It had never crossed my mind. But I had a family get on, a Saudi family or from that area.
Yeah.
And it might not have been Saudi, but it was from that area. And they had about an 11-year-old girl with them who was sitting on the aisle, men over here, women over here, sitting on the aisle in agony, in pain.
Oh,
and
no.
I thought maybe she has appendicitis, maybe this, maybe that. And the men would not look at her. The women would not look at her. and I said to the women, what can I do to help your child? There was a grandmother and a mother and this child. And they say, it was her time. It was her time to be
Oh
made a
no.
lady, to be made a woman. She will get over it. We did. And so, and I didn't realize that I should have told the captain and they could have had them met by authorities at the other end. Not that it would have done the good,
Right.
any good at
Yeah.
all. And so I wrote a story about it. And my supervisor called me in and said, because I wrote for JetBlue and,
Yeah.
most of my stuff was on their website, or not their website, their private emails.
Right. Yeah.
And I was called in and they said, Heather, it was your job to report that.
Yeah.
And I had no idea, because until it's in your face,
Wow.
you don't realize what's legal or illegal, or a parental right, or a custom of another country.
Yeah. Do
But
you remember the
haven't.
case?
Pardon?
Sorry. Remember in the case out of Quebec about 10 years ago of a immigrant family from a Muslim country, I cannot remember which country, where one of the daughters started dating a Canadian
Oh, it's out of
Asian man,
Toronto.
and honor killing.
The father killed the daughter, and the mother. The mother helped,
Right. And
in front of another daughter.
yeah. And
Yeah.
fortunately, they were sentenced to the maximum possible prison term. I'm against capital punishment under any circumstances, but it's now I was always brought up, thanks to my mom and also in Denmark, that we shouldn't believe that Western culture is superior, respect other cultures. Have you read Jared Diamond's book, Guns, Germs, and Steel?
No.
We really should. It's very, very short summary. Many people have said the reason why white Europeans came to dominate the world is because white Europeans are superior to all these swarthy non-Western people. And this book, he argues the reason why Europeans were able to dominate the world is very much an accident of geology, flora, and fauna. Western Europe has oak trees that could be used to build sailing ships. Other parts of the world, say Native Hawaiians, they have palm trees, but you can't make a sailing ship out of a palm tree. Accidents of geology, Europe has iron deposits that could be used to make steel. People from Europe grew up in close proximity with farm animals that gave them exposure to other germs. So this book is called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And the argument, it's just an accident of geology, biology that enabled Europeans to take over the world. But I digress.
And not only that, go ahead. Just to bring that down to a microcosmic, why am I here? Why are you here? How do we survive?
I always believe that we shouldn't believe that Western culture is not superior. That said, there are things that are wrong. Racism and misogyny are wrong.
No matter where they are. Yes.
And unfortunately, in many non-Western parts of the world, misogyny is even more prevalent than it is in our mighty, superior United States.
Well, let me tell you something about misogyny.
Yeah.
Our president is a misogynist.
Oh yeah, and a racist and a rapist.
And yet so many women have lost vital rights since this regime became our regime. And I'm hoping we can get all those rights back when we get better leaders, and I don't care what party they are, if they're better leaders and they're more viable in today's society, if they're more amenable to open-mindedness, if they're more moral, if they're a moral fiber and believe in equality.
I'm old enough to remember Phyllis Schlafly.
Ah.
And was it her daughter or son who came out as gay or something like that? But no, sadly, women. I'm sorry.
I thought maybe trans. Something like that.
No,
Anyway, back to
yes,
Phyllis. Back to
something
Phyllis
like
Schlafly.
But unfortunately, women can be their own worst enemy.
Somebody once told me, he's my friend's Margot Sherwood's brother-in-law. He's a black doctorate professor out west, and married to a white woman, married to Margot's sister. And he said to me when he came home to Vermont for a party, said, "You know who's going to lose the election for Hillary?" And I
Yeah.
said, "No, who? No, who?
Women.
Women. The women
Yeah.
will not vote." I could not stand Hillary. I mean,
No,
but
nor I. But given the
it's like
alternative,
he said,
yeah,
women were the ones who were going to vote for Trump,
yeah,
and
and
to thank us, he's taken away all our rights.
had any politician of either party done the Access Hollywood tape,
Oh,
no,
hello,
most of
Access Hollywood, when he was talking about grabbing somebody's.
yeah, or making fun of John McCain for being shot down, or
Or
mocking
saying-
the disabled, or mocking the disabled reporter. Had any politician of other party done any of those things, gone. But
Gone.
somehow Trump, and it's the cult of personality. And I didn't realize how big of a cultural thing Donald Trump was, because I never watched this TV show.
Neither did I.
The Prince. I knew he was a real estate developer from New York. He was in the.
I knew he'd gone bankrupt 4 times. I knew about that.
He was in the tabloids or not. I was never aware of what of a cult figure he was, and until he started running for president. Good God, 10 years ago.
He did not expect to win the first time. He thought he would not win.
And he'd show up at some town someplace, and it would be like Princess Diana couldn't have drawn that big of a crowd.
And he promised people seats. He promised people seats at the Flynn.
Yeah.
And he sold more seats than there were seats. And then he never
Yeah.
paid.
And when he showed up in Vermont 10 years ago,
Yeah.
not in the invitation of the Vermont Republican Party, he never paid the Burlington Police Department for the overtime for, yeah.
I know, he never paid.
It's I have, on my American side of the family, my dad was American, his sister, her husband, my uncle, Irish Catholic. My aunt and uncle had 11 kids. My uncle, West Point graduate, airborne soldier in World War II, Purple Heart, Silver Star in World War II, lifelong Republican. He was actually in local politics in Ventura County as a Republican when I was growing up. In 2016, I didn't know this because I was already living in Vermont and hadn't really kept in touch with that side of the family. In 2016, this lifelong Republican voted for Hillary Clinton because he said that Trump reminds me of Hitler. Here's somebody, West Point graduate, went over to Europe, got wounded, finding real Hitler. This lifelong Republican said he is like Hitler and voted for Hillary Clinton. He passed away a couple years ago. I wish I'd known that before he passed away. And actually, at his memorial, I found out that was the second time that he voted for a Democrat. He also voted for Kennedy in 1960, but never did dare tell my aunt.
No, it's too bad.
But
I know what it's like to have differences in families. It's because I'm from Canada, where my family was 100% liberal.
Yeah.
And we were never allowed to talk politics outside of the family. We were never allowed to talk finances.
Probably not the worst idea in the world.
Finances, religion, or anything outside of the family, especially politics. But around our dining room table, well, our kitchen table, because we were always eating at the kitchen table, was more comfortable. My dad and I and my brother would get into these rows, really interesting conversations, and all good natured, but all really powerful conversations.
Heather, it's so funny you say that, because when I would go to my aunt and uncle's house out in Ojai, California for Thanksgiving and Christmas, 11 cousins, one of whom was and now is to the left of me politically, others who were very, very much to the right of me politically. Thanksgiving dinners were always a hoot, lively, but respectful.
Yeah, respectful.
But they were family, but it's always respectful. with a great deal of discussion. And when my aunt passed away 12 years ago, I went to the viewing at the funeral home out in Ventura, California, and a bunch of the cousins, I was sitting around, and a teacher who taught many of my cousins back in the day came by to pay his respects, Mr. DeVito. And after he left, the discussions came up about education, and everybody started talking. And then one of my cousins said, "Wow, this seems like old time, except Mom's being kind of quiet." I can completely identify. You would go to family gatherings and having these siblings, families getting into animated discussions.
We never had gossip conversations in my family. My dad would instigate the conversation, or my mother would bring up a subject, usually on the arts or something like that, to discuss. We better go to that table prepared, or shut up. You have to know your stuff before you get a word in edgewise in the family. And so it was a great place. It was a think tank in my family, and I was the least of the thinkers, but I certainly learned a lot from my family in conversation. And when I was 19, I wrote my very first editorial for the Montreal Star, which was the largest English-speaking newspaper in Canada. Yeah. And, it was a political editorial. John Turner, a member of Parliament, had said that I'm only making $52,000 a year as your member of Parliament. That is an insult. So I wrote, insult me. Because $52,000 a year to a 19-year-old sounds pretty good. And I did a few things in there, that some of his policies that we discussed at the table. And then I signed my name. And by God, I'm walking down the streets of Montreal and somebody say, "Hey, Heather, a good article." And I went, "Oh my God, did it make it in?" Oh no. I went home. I grabbed the Montreal Star as soon as, it was already there. I grabbed the Montreal Star. It was an afternoon newspaper. And I got that out of there. And I took that whole section out before my dad got home. And I said, I hope to God none of the people he works with read that article. But of course, everybody did. And the next night, my dad came home. And he looked at me and he said, "Did the Star come today?" I went, "Yeah." He said, "It came yesterday too, didn't it? But I didn't see it, did I?" I went, and he said, "Don't talk outside the family." It was like being in The Godfather, "Don't ever let your business be known outside of the family." Oh, God, Dad. And what do I become a writer. You can't stop it when it's in there. Like, sometimes I wish I could, because to be, I like to say I'm open-minded, but I am against the regime we presently have. I'm not against all Republicans by any means.
Yeah.
They know not what they do in many cases.
Exactly.
I'm sure their heart's in the right place. They're just
maybe.
only listening to one side. They don't have a broader view. Can I see their view? Well, in a lot of cases, I'm as guilty as they are for closing my mind.
Yeah.
And when you look at the world, when you look at this country, its vastness, its multiculturalism, as you were saying, the cultures, they can't all meld like this. They're going to have to maintain their individuality even within our group to make this an interesting place.
Do you remember? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm not interesting. You go.
The beer commercial from about 10 years ago, the I Am Canadian beer commercial.
With the Mackenzie brothers? The Hoosers?
No. This was, you'll have to Google it.
Was it Molson Canadian or Labatt Blue or Dow?
It was about a guy who's talking about why Canada is great. And in one of this, he says, "I believe in diversity, not assimilation. I believe the beaver is a proud and noble animal. I believe that Canada is the first nation of hockey." And it was a commercial for a beer. And when it came out, maybe more than 10 years ago, it caused a little surge in Canadian patriotism. The people were standing up and cheering the commercial. Of course, it was for beer, but it was a great little humorous take on why Canada is great.
Well, we only have 5 minutes left in this show, so I'm going to wrap it up a little bit. But I will tell you something. Mr. Christian Elberfeld.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
We wondered if you were going to have enough to talk about today. My show is very conversational, and you are a wonderful conversationalist. In the next few minutes, would you mind telling everyone about your MS, multiple sclerosis?
It sucks, but a lot of diseases that are a lot worse. My dad had MS. He was an attorney, international admiralty law of all things. And it's not hereditary, it does run in families. And he was diagnosed in 1964. He was in a nursing home 9 years after being diagnosed. It ended his career as an attorney. And I used to say, wow, back in 1964, they could fire you for getting MS. Thank goodness we have the ADA. They can't do that now. Well, they can. But here it is. It's been 20 plus years. I do okay-ish. I walk with a cane. I had to sometimes use a wheelchair if I'm at a big airport. I have brain fog. Fatigue is the biggest thing. And occasional incontinence problems. So other than the fatigue, the stumbly walk, brain fog, and incontinence, I do basically okay. It makes it difficult to find a job. And but as my neurologist said when he diagnosed me, there are a lot of diseases that are a lot worse than MS. If for no other reason, it's a disease that enough other people have where there is research money. I have a very good friend of mine whose mother passed away from an orphan disease, Braunschweiger syndrome, which is something that's similar to Parkinson's, but not close enough to Parkinson's where Parkinson's medications do any good. So if you're going to get a big chronic disease, get one that other people get.
I'll remember that.
Yeah, but
anyway,
I do.
You are doing fabulously intellectually, and even though you say brain fog, your knowledge of history is amazing. We're going to have to close the show, but
let me get in one quick thing, quick plug for Bernie Sanders.
Pardon?
Bernie Sanders.
Yes. What about him?
Even before I moved to Vermont, I knew who Bernie Sanders was, and then I started working at Burlington Airport. I used to see him every week, flying down to DC-8. Then I left U.S. Airways back in 2012. Next time I saw Bernie Sanders was in 2015 at some event down in Burlington.
Yep.
Hi, Chris. How you doing? How's your health? He remembers my name, but he also remembers that I have a health concern.
And it's not just to get a vote. He really cares.
No.
And closing on the Bernie Sanders note.
Yeah.
I'm so glad he's a voice for America. I'm so glad he's a voice for what we want and what we deserve in this country. And you have to love Bernie.
I hope it didn't bore everyone to tears.
No, not at all. Anyway, Christian Elberfeld, it doesn't have to be the last time you're on the show.
No, not at all.
I've enjoyed this very, very much. We'll keep in touch on Facebook.
Come out to LA. We'll go to Dockweiler Beach and watch the planes take off.
I would love that. Anything to do with aircraft. Anyway, thank you so much. I'm going to close off the show. Christian Elberfeld, everybody who watches this show, if you have MS, you don't have to slow down. You have to pay attention. And this.
Thanks, Heather. I appreciate that.
And thank you, and give my love to everybody in Manhattan Beach and the gentleman for whom you're caring at this time, 88 years old and making his own violins.
Well, actually, he turns 90 in a couple of months, and
I know how that feels.
But no,
give him my best, and I will give you my best now.
Alzheimer's is beyond devastating.
Yes, I know. We'll have to do a show on Alzheimer's.
Okay. All right. Cheers. Thank you so much for the. And we'll be in touch soon.
On behalf of NEK-TV and everybody here at the station, Kelby Rodriguez, if you see anything added to this show, Christian, it will be the work of my fabulous producer, Kelby Rodriguez, who does all the post-production. She will find something to put in here that will meld beautifully with some of the things we've talked about, whether it's Greenland or a map of the way things were. You watch. This show is going to be a lot more interesting than you and me can make it.
Yeah.
You and I can make it.
Next time you talk to your fellow JetBlue alum, Stephen Slater, tell him I said hello.
I will. All my love. And to you folks who are watching Life is Good, Thanks for watching Life is Good. I hope to see you next week. Mwah. Thanks,
Good night.
Christian.
We're really gonna rock tonight.